This movie could have turned into a gritty action thriller starring Sylvester Stallone, but instead became one of the best action comedies of the 20th century. It launched the dazzling Eddie Murphy into stardom and kickstarted a beloved franchise about the misadventures of a reckless cop. Movies Inside Out presents. Today, we'll dive into Beverly Hills Cop, which hit theaters in 1984 and has retained its charm even 40 years later. How did an ordinary quarter decide the fate of the film? Why were real police officers afraid to be on set? And what stimulant inspired Murphy's hilarious monologue about super cops? The answers to these and other questions are coming up right now. The creation story. The story of Beverly Hills Cop began in 1975. One day, Paramount Studios president Michael Eisner was driving his old station wagon when he was pulled over for speeding on the highway. The officer let Eisner off with a warning, seemingly because of the condition of his car. This offended the studio executive, making him realize that in Los Angeles, status was judged largely by appearances. The next day, he traded his station wagon for a Mercedes and came up with the idea for a movie about a cop encountering a similar situation. Paramount producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer loved Eisner's concept and tasked writer Daniel Bach with creating the script. In 1981, Bach delivered a draft titled Beverly Drive, about a Pittsburgh cop named Ellie Axel who travels to Beverly Hills to investigate his friend's murder. However, Bach's version was a straightforward action film, while the producers wanted more comedy. After several rewrites, the project was shelved as Simpson and Bruckheimer turned their attention to the romantic drama Flashdance. Following its commercial success, they decided to revisit Beverly Hills Cop, seeing it as their next major project. Screenwriter Daniel Petrie Jr. was brought in to rework the script. He took a more humorous approach, inspired by his real-life conversations with police officers, who often shared darkly funny stories. The plot remained largely the same, but the protagonist became Axel Ellie, a cop from Detroit. The role of Axel was initially offered to Mickey Rourke, then famous for Diner. Rourke even signed a $400,000 contract, but delays in pre-production led him to leave the project. The character's last name was changed to Foley, and Sylvester Stallone was brought on as the new lead. However, Stallone found the humor in the script unsuitable and rewrote it himself, turning Beverly Hills Cop back into a standard action film. He made significant changes to the plot, the characters, and even Axel's last name, which he changed to Cabretti. Don Simpson opposed this direction, and Stallone eventually left the project. According to one rumor, Stallone's departure stemmed from a disagreement over the brand of orange juice he was supposed to drink on set. And here, there could have been an ad for your juice brand. Another story claims that Simpson introduced Stallone to a Swiss doctor specializing in muscle enhancement. After Stallone flew to Switzerland, Simpson continued working on the film without him. However, Stallone's own explanation was more straightforward. He didn't believe audiences would accept him as a rookie cop in a comedy. The search for a director was equally challenging. At one point, Martin Scorsese was considered but declined, feeling the concept was too similar to Coogan's Bluff starring Clint Eastwood. Horror maestro David Cronenberg also passed on the project. The producers were under pressure to find a new candidate and turned to Martin Brest. Brest, who had only directed one comedy, Going in Style, had been fired mid-production of the thriller War Games, damaging his reputation. Despite this, Simpson and Bruckheimer repeatedly asked Brest to take on the project. He initially refused, but eventually flipped a quarter to decide, and the coin landed him the job. After the success of Beverly Hills Cop, Brest framed the lucky quarter and hung it in his office. As for Stallone, he went on to make the musical comedy Rhinestone, which flopped and earned him a Razzie Award. However, he later reused some of his ideas for Beverly Hills Cop in his action film Cobra. Casting. In addition to Mickey Rourke and Sylvester Stallone, other actors considered for the role of Axel Foley included Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, who is now also Dunkachino.
Dunkachino? Don't mind if I do!
James Caan, Harrison Ford, and many other Hollywood stars. However, Simpson and Bruckheimer ultimately chose Eddie Murphy, an up-and-coming but already well-known actor thanks to his roles in 48 Hours and Trading Places. Murphy joined the cast just 2 days after Stallone's departure, saving the project from being shelved indefinitely.
Jesus Christ!
Interestingly, Eddie turned down the role of Winston Zeddemore in Ghostbusters to star in this film. By the way, we've already covered Ghostbusters on our channel. To cast the roles of Rosewood and Taggart, director Martin Brest paired the leading candidates together and asked them to improvise to test their chemistry. One pair, Judge Reinhold and John Ashton, was tasked with playing a middle-aged married couple having an ordinary evening conversation. This exercise birthed the hilarious dialogue about 2 pounds of undigested red meat in your bowels, which made it into the movie almost unchanged.
You know, it says here that by the time the average American is 50, he's got 5 pounds of undigested red meat in his bowels.
Why are you telling me this? What makes you think I have any interest in that at all?
Incidentally, in an early draft written for Stallone, Billy Rosewood's character was named Siddons, and he was killed off in an action scene midway through the film. However, the studio found the sequence too expensive, and after Brest cast Reinhold and Ashton, the decision was made to keep Rosewood alive. Jenny Summers was played by Lisa Eilbacher, who had previously appeared mostly in small roles in lesser-known films and TV shows.
You like?
Yeah.
Good?
You're getting old.
Fuck you.
Inspector Todd was portrayed by Gilbert Hill, an actual homicide detective from the Detroit Police Department. Martin Brest met Hill while scouting locations for the film. Maybe they didn't even tell him it was a movie? That's how convincing his performance was. Later, Hill served as president of the Detroit City Council and even ran for mayor in 2001, though he lost to Kwame Kilpatrick.
The mayor called the chief called the deputy chief just chewed my ass out. You see I don't have any bit of it left, don't you?
The stern Lieutenant Andrew Bogomil was played by Ronnie Cox, who later appeared in similar roles in RoboCop and Total Recall.
Banana in your tailpipe. How could you not notice a man sticking a banana in your tailpipe?
Well, he distracted us, sir.
The role of the villain, Victor Maitland, went to Steven Berkoff after a member of the casting team was impressed by his performance in the Bond film Octopussy.
I'm all ears.
I'll kill you.
Really? That would be a neat trick.
The flamboyant art gallery employee Serge was played by Bronson Pinchot. Despite having only a small part in risky business, Pinchot was ready to drop out of the project if production didn't start on time.
Tell me, Summers, that Mr. Ahmed Foley is here to see...
Axel Foley. Axel.
Axel. Foley is here to see her.
The film also features a cameo by director Martin Brest himself, who plays the hotel clerk kicking Axel out of his room. The filming process. Filming for Beverly Hills Cop began in early May and wrapped up in late July 1984. Most of the movie was shot in Los Angeles and its surrounding areas. The opening scenes were filmed in Detroit, but real police officers who were tasked with escorting the crew and closing off streets refused to enter the most dangerous neighborhoods out of fear for their safety.
Welcome to motherfucking Detroit, damn it, Wonderboy.
The filmmakers, however, were undeterred and shot scenes in these areas without protection. Many scenes were filmed in Pasadena, as Beverly Hills city authorities prohibited filming after 10:30 p.m. Additionally, the Beverly Hills Police Department refused to allow the crew to use their facilities. Director Martin Brest decided to create entirely fictional sets for the police station, deliberately making them nothing like the real department. Brest wanted the Beverly Hills station to look drastically different from the gritty Detroit precinct where Axel came from. For the Beverly Hills station's interiors, Brest reused design concepts from his work on War Games, a film he had been fired from. Like Stallone, who repurposed ideas from Beverly Hills Cop for Cobra, Brest believed his concepts were too good to go to waste. The Beverly Hills City Hall was eventually approved as a filming location, but its exterior was in poor condition. The production team had to spend money on restoration and even planted fresh greenery around the building. The script, heavily rewritten to suit Eddie Murphy, wasn't completed until the first day of filming. It was a compilation of various drafts written over several years. However, it continued to be revised on set, with actors often seeing their lines for the first time just before shooting. For 65-year-old Stephen Elliott, who played Chief Hubbard, this made memorizing his lines particularly difficult. In his first scene, he can be seen holding a rolled-up script. Brest decided to keep this detail, feeling it added to the character. Elliott also mistakenly referred to Rosewood as Rosemont, but Brest liked the slip-up and left it in the film.
Who lured Taggart and Rosemont into a gross dereliction of duty at a striptease establishment?
It's Rosewood, sir.
When certain parts of the script still felt off, Eddie Murphy would take the lead, improvising entire scenes and dialogues. In fact, many of the film's funniest lines were improvised by Murphy, John Ashton, and Judge Reinhold. Axel's famous Super Cops monologue was also improvised on set.
You must have a sixth sense. I don't know what you teach these fellows, but they're not just regular cops, okay? They're super cops.
The scene was filmed in a closed, unventilated soundstage during the sweltering heat of mid-August. By the end of the day, Murphy, exhausted and dehydrated, was reluctant to continue. The crew persuaded him to drink some coffee to perk up. Although Murphy disliked stimulants, including caffeine, he agreed to take a few sips. The caffeine hit him harder than expected, leading to the improvised and now iconic monologue. In the same scene, John Ashton can be seen covering his face with his hand and looking down. He was trying not to burst into laughter. To avoid ruining the take, he resorted to pinching his thigh. Brest wanted a scene of Axel walking down a Beverly Hills street, but scheduling conflicts made this impossible. Instead, the shot of Axel passing two men in leather outfits was filmed in a particularly dirty part of Los Angeles. The production team added expensive cars and greenery to make the location look more upscale. The banana in the tailpipe scene was originally written differently. Axel was supposed to sneak into the hotel kitchen and grab some potatoes, but budget constraints prevented filming this version. Murphy used the available set instead, improvising the idea to grab a banana from the breakfast buffet. Damon Wayans, who made his film debut as the buffet attendant, landed the role thanks to Murphy. In the credits, his character is humorously listed as Banana Man. In the scene where Axel and Jenny are held at gunpoint, Victor Maitland shakes his head mockingly at Axel. This reaction was actually prompted by one of Murphy's improvised lines, which was later cut. Brest liked Burkhoff's reaction so much that he kept the moment in the film. In the film's opening, a man gesturing wildly to his friends can be spotted. According to Brest, the man had witnessed the filming of the truck chase scene and was excitedly recounting it to his companions. Originally, the art gallery scene was meant to feature two employees with a full dialogue between them. However, Bronson Pinchot's portrayal of Serge impressed Brest so much that he expanded Pinchot's role and reduced the other characters. Pinchot later revealed that Serge's accent and mannerisms were inspired by a makeup artist he had worked with on another project. Interestingly, in 1986, Pinchot began playing a similar character in the sitcom Perfect Strangers. The t-shirt Axel wears in the first half of the film belonged to producer Jerry Bruckheimer, who actually attended Mumford High School near Detroit. After the movie's release, the the school received countless requests for the same shirt from fans worldwide. The satellite tracking system used to locate Foley and Rosewood was entirely fictional at the time. However, similar technology would soon become known as GPS. In the strip club scene, the song Nasty Girl plays in the background. This choice wasn't random. It was recommended by a real-life stripper who participated in the filming of the scene. And perhaps not only in the scene, if you catch my drift. A heartfelt bar scene between Axel and Mikey was well received in test screenings, but the studio wanted it cut. Brest managed to keep part of it, including the touching declaration of friendship, though it had to be trimmed.
Because I love you, man.
Studio executives also disliked a scene where Victor threatens to shoot Jenny, but Brest insisted it was essential for developing the villain's character. To appease the producers, he added the freeze-frame ending to the film, despite his aesthetic objections to the idea. In the hotel registration scene, Axel introduces himself as a reporter writing an article titled Michael Jackson at the Top of the World for Rolling Stone. Coincidentally, an article with the same title about Eddie Murphy appeared in Playboy in January 1983. In the same scene, Axel refers to himself using a racial slur.
You might as well just call it Michael Jackson can sit on top of the world just as long as he doesn't sit in the Beverly Palm Hotel because there's no niggers allowed in there.
Brest had initially avoided referencing the character's race, but Murphy's improvisation felt appropriate, so it was left in the film. In the shootout scene, Murphy jumps down a flight of stairs while firing his gun. Initially, the actor refused to perform the stunt, but Brest convinced him by demonstrating the jump himself. Reluctantly, Murphy followed suit. The mansion where the final shootout takes place was once the estate of silent film star Harold Lloyd in Beverly Hills. It was also used for a gunfight in Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Coincidentally, both films feature a character named Jenny. Movie mistakes and errors. Let's tally up the goofs and errors found in Beverly Hills Cop. At the beginning of the movie, in shots from inside the truck, Axel's hand holding the cash is down, but in exterior shots, it's raised. During the chase, a large camera can be seen between the front seats of one of the police cars. Additionally, when the truck crashes into a taxi, members of the crew are clearly visible on one of the roofs. We hid better than this during childhood games of hide and seek. A sign that appears on the truck after colliding with a produce vehicle momentarily disappears and then reappears. At the same time, a crowd of onlookers can be seen in the background. The cab of the wrecked truck fills with smoke in just a few seconds, though in reality, this would take much longer. Meanwhile, a stuntman with thick hair jumps out of the cab, even though the main actor has much thinner hair. In the Detroit police station, the word investigation is misspelled as investigaten. Billiard balls change positions on the table during a game. In the same scene, Mikey's watch appears and disappears. His arm moves from Axel's neck to his shoulder and back, and the cue stick alternates between his right and left hands. After Mikey's murder, Axel holds a bloody napkin to his neck. However, the next day, there's no wound visible. While driving through Beverly Hills, a blonde woman raises her sunglasses onto her head, but seconds later, they're in her hand, and she puts them back on her face. In a shop window, the reflection of Axel's car, parked on the opposite side of the street, is visible even though Axel is supposed to be driving it. When Axel checks into the hotel, the receptionist alternates between looking at him and at the computer, depending on the camera angle. Similarly, Serge's hand alternates between touching his face and being at his side. During a conversation between Axel and Jenny, Axel's hand moves abruptly from his stomach to his pocket. When Foley is thrown out of Maitland's office window, he lands in sunlight, but when the police arrive, he's in the shade. As the angle changes, the lighting shifts multiple times. Strangely, despite crashing through the glass, Axel has no scratches. Axel's hair length changes between his arrest and the next scene, where he's sitting in the back of the police car. The bananas Axel places in the tailpipes differ from the ones he's given at the buffet. 4 nails sticking out of a crate lid disappear seconds later, despite no time to remove them. In the strip club, Axel jokes,
Make sure we get the right drinks, because if I drink club soda, I'll throw up.
even though he ordered a whiskey and soda moments earlier. When Zach is thrown over the buffet table, his face lands in sliced oranges, but in the next shot, it's covered in strawberries and cream. Meanwhile, the white cake clearly breaks in half too perfectly, indicating it's a prop. In the same scene, Eddie Murphy's stunt double is noticeable. When Jenny and Axel enter the warehouse, the door swings outward, but in the interior shot, it swings inward. When Foley pulls packets of drugs from coffee grounds, he rips one open and tastes it. In reality, no officer would risk tasting an unknown substance.
I do always wonder what street it is you're buying your cocaine on, because it's not the same street as I'm buying my cocaine on.
Furthermore, hiding powder in coffee wouldn't fool trained dogs, which would detect both scents. Rosewood runs across a busy 4-lane road, but seconds earlier, it was a 2-lane road. Foley punches the same man twice, who knocks over the same crates both times. When Rosewood and Taggart argue about entering Maitland's property, the position of the open gates behind Rosewood changes between shots. During the shootout, Rosewood runs from behind a wall with a shotgun, but in the next shot, he's holding a revolver. Moments later, the shotgun reappears, which he hands to Taggart. When Foley, Rosewood, and Taggart leap over a short wall, their stunt doubles are obvious due to their different hairstyles. In the same scene, windows shattered by gunfire are intact again in later shots. Axel's sneakers make the sound of hard-soled shoes as he walks across the tiled floor in Maitland's mansion. Before Axel is shot in the right arm, he's holding his gun in his right hand. After falling, the gun is suddenly on the floor next to him, even though it's neither seen nor heard being dropped. Additionally, 2 extra bloodstains appear on the floor, though Axel only touched it once. Didn't nail it in one take? Oh well, who has time to clean the set? A henchman's holster vanishes after he runs out of the mansion, but reappears in later shots. A stunt double, rather than Maitland, tumbles down the stairs. Meanwhile, during the interrogation scene, Axel's sweatshirt is on backward. On the movie poster, Axel is shown holding a Colt .45 M1911 pistol, but throughout the film, he uses a 9mm Browning. Have you spotted other mistakes in the movie? Share them in the comments. Deleted scenes and bloopers. Ron Karabatsos appeared in the film as Detective Rand, whom Axel mentions in his conversation with Todd after Mikey's murder. A scene where Axel shares his plans with Rand was cut from the theatrical release, as was a sequence of Axel packing his things and preparing to leave for Beverly Hills. Both scenes were later included in the 2020 Blu-ray edition. In the West German theatrical version, the most violent scenes were removed to give the film a softer rating, allowing children age 12 and up to watch it. For some TV broadcasts, coarse language and explicit expressions were replaced, and the scene depicting Mikey's murder was altered for streaming platforms. In the original release, the first gunshot was accompanied by a flash, which was digitally covered with a smoke effect in these edited versions. According to the filmmakers, numerous takes were ruined because not only the actors, but also the crew, and even the director, couldn't stop laughing during filming. Unfortunately, these amusing moments never made it online, so we can't share the laughs with them. Worldwide recognition. Martin Brest's film made such a strong impression on Paramount chairman Frank Mancuso during its first private screening that he immediately told producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, "This movie is going to outdo Ghostbusters, so let's get started on the sequel right now." Beverly Hills Cop premiered on December 5th, 1984, and instantly claimed the top spot at the US box office, earning over $15 million in its first 5 days. By December 21st, the film was playing in more than 2,000 theaters and held the #1 position for 14 consecutive weeks, a new record at the time, surpassing Tootsie. With a modest $15 million budget, the film ultimately grossed about $235 million in the US and $81.6 million overseas, making it the highest grossing film of 1984 in the US and the second worldwide, after Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It also broke the 11-year record set by The Exorcist for the highest grossing R-rated film in the US, holding that title for 19 years until The Matrix Reloaded surpassed it in 2003. Eddie Murphy's base salary for the film was $4 million, but thanks to a profit-sharing deal, his earnings rose to $14 million. Critics praised the film, especially Murphy's charm and charisma. Beverly Hills Cop earned an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay, Golden Globe nominations for Best Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy and Best Actor in a Comedy for Eddie Murphy, and a BAFTA nomination for Best Original Score. Over the years, the movie has appeared on numerous Best Films lists, compiled by outlets such as the New York Times, Entertainment Weekly, and Empire. The soundtrack won a Grammy for Best Score Soundtrack for Visual Media, and included 3 Billboard Hot 100 Top 10 singles: the iconic Axel F, The Heat Is On, and Neutron Dance. Interestingly, the film's VHS release coincided with the launch of Casio's portable PT-80 micro keyboard. Children worldwide began playing Axel F on the device so frequently that school teachers reportedly complained about hearing the tune non-stop during breaks. In 2005, Axel F received a remix by Crazy Frog, which became a global hit. Beverly Hills Cop was a breakout role for Eddie Murphy, catapulting him to Hollywood stardom and kickstarting a streak of 7 consecutive films debuting at #1 at the box office. For the rest of the cast, the movie also opened doors, though their roles in Beverly Hills Cop remain some of the most memorable of their careers. The film also positively impacted Martin Brest's trajectory. He went on to direct Scent of a Woman starring Al Pacino and Meet Joe Black with Brad Pitt. However, following the disastrous 2003 flop Gijli, Brest left the film industry. The sequel, greenlit before the original's release, was directed by Tony Scott and premiered in 1987. While commercially successful, it received mixed reviews from critics. Nevertheless, its box office performance justified a third installment, directed by John Landis and released in 1994. Unfortunately, the third film disappointed both critics and audiences. Despite the trilogy's disappointing conclusion, Paramount repeatedly attempted to revive the franchise. Over the decades, various directors and writers were attached to the project. Finally, in 2022, director Mike Malloy took the reins, and production moved forward. The new chapter in Axel Foley's adventures premiered in July 2024. Will it be able to approach the success of the first part, or become another letdown? Only time will tell. What about you? Are you excited for a modern take on the charismatic cop, or do you prefer the classic original?